My name is Olivia, and what you just experienced was a sensory overload simulation. When we think about accessibility on campus, we might imagine ramps, lifts, and automatic doors, but for many students, accessibility also entails how comfortably we can exist in the environment. In fact, research conducted at an Australian university found that neurodiverse students, particularly with autism or ADHD, face sensory barriers like noise, harsh lighting, and overcrowded spaces that limit academic and social participation. Another study found that to cope with such stresses, students hid in bathrooms and left campus early. While Macquarie University currently provides one sensory room, the data suggests that isolating accessibility in separate spaces can actually increase social exclusion by expecting neurodiverse students to remove themselves from mainstream environments. This embodies a neoliberal framework that positions adaptation as the solution. When neurodivergent students are expected to self-regulate through personal coping strategies, the burden of change is placed on the individual rather than the exclusionary environment itself. The literature supports this by suggesting that students have benefited more when sensory-friendly spaces are embedded across campus. This issue also persists because universities often conceptualize disability through a medical model, positioning it as an individual deficit to be managed. As a result, campuses are designed around assumptions of the normal student, and neurodiversity is positioned as a deviation from this. So, what is the solution? Well, Neuroinclusive Spaces, a multi-phase program, will aim to address this issue by weaving sensory-friendly design throughout campus. Stage 1 will involve a campus-wide survey that invites neurodiverse students to identify what they would like to see changed and introduced. This could include suggesting improvements for the existing sensory room, as well as highlighting areas that are prone to sensory barriers. Importantly, this will ensure the intervention is informed by the lived experiences of students in this locality. Stage 2 will focus on implementing student-led changes by improving the existing sensory room, for example, maybe implementing dimmable lighting, as well as integrating low sensory zones across high-use buildings. These zones will be designated levels that enforce reduced noise, dimmable lighting, and enclosed study facilities. A sensory toolkit loan service will also be introduced so students can access tools across campus rather than one isolated space. The final stage will focus on increasing awareness. Many students, including myself, were unaware the sensory room even existed. This phase will focus on improving signage, social media reach, and awareness of invisible disabilities. Importantly, this intervention addresses the root cause of the issue by making the mainstream campus more accessible rather than expecting students to remove themselves from high-traffic areas. To implement this, collaboration will be needed between MQ student wellbeing, accessibility services, and neurodivergent students themselves. Has this proven to work? Well, a similar qualitative study conducted at an Australian university found that quieter environments with low sensory inputs helped students feel safe enough to unmask, not only improving their concentration, but their overall enjoyment of university. Similarly, a large survey-based study found that accessibility was improved when embedded in the broader environment through tools like study pods and enclosed chairs. Interestingly, similar interventions have benefited not only neurodiverse students, but also the broader student population. One possible barrier for this intervention could be funding constraints, as integrating accessibility structurally is often associated with expensive infrastructure design. However, to overcome this intervention has been specifically designed to modify existing spaces and improve equipment rather than construct entirely new areas. A pilot program, for example, implementing low sensory zones during assessment periods, could be first trialed within existing library floors before wider implementation. Another possible barrier is the stigma surrounding invisible disabilities, which may reduce student engagement with sensory support. To overcome this, awareness campaigns would be integrated into orientation and wellbeing programs to normalize accessible campus design. As a first step, I am asking MQ Student Wellbeing to immediately conduct an accessibility survey. Without consulting the students most affected, Macquarie risks reinforcing environments that exclude those whose needs fall outside the normal student experience.